Find the real solutions of the following equation. We have 5x cubed plus 8x squared minus 9x plus 2 equals 0. We want to solve this equation. This equation is a polynomial equation. And I'm going to start with noticing the degree of this polynomial. It has a degree 3. And because it has a degree 3, I know that it's going to have 3 solutions. And this is using the fundamental theorem of algebra. So having a degree polynomial of 3 means that we have 3 solutions, or 3 zeros of the function. I'm also going to be able to use the rational root test to find any possible rational zeros of the polynomial equation. So with the rational root test, I'm going to be looking at our leading coefficient of 5, and that's going to be the value of q, and our constant term, which is going to be p, and it's actually factors of these numbers are going to be p and q. So for p is going to be factors of 2, and factors of 2 are 2 and 1. Let's write them in order, 1 and 2, and it can be positive or negative. For q, we have a 5, and factors of 5 are going to be 1 and 5. And using the rational root test, our rational zeros must be of the form p over q. So I can take all the combinations of p over q to form these possible rational zeros. So that's going to be 1 over 1, 1 over 5, 2 over 1, and 2 over 5. And these can all be plus or minus. So our simplifying those, we have plus and minus 1, plus and minus 2, plus and minus 1/5, and plus and minus 2/5. So those are the possible real solutions or rational solutions to this polynomial equation. So I can test out which one of these is true using my calculator. So I'm going to bring my calculator in. And in the y equals menu, I'll put our equation. 5x cubed plus 8x squared minus 9x plus 2. And I'm going to use the table to help me do this. You don't have to use the table, but that's what I like using. So if I go to the table settings, that second window to the table settings, I want to make sure that my calculator is in ask mode. And then I'll go to the table and I'm going to select these values. That's 1 and -1, 2 and -2, 1/5 and -1/5, and 2/5 and -2/5. So looking over on the right hand side, I'm looking for when this equals 0, and I only have one that equals 0, and that is a positive 2/5. So I've identified one of the zeros of this equation, one of the solutions or zeros of this equation. So we found that 2/5 is the only one that we have so far. So I'm going to reduce this down using synthetic division. So 2/5 is a solution I know. And I'm going to write down just the coefficients. I've got 5, 8, -9, and 2. We bring the first term down, and we multiply 2/5 times 5 to get 2. We're going to add these together to get 10, and we'll multiply 2/5 times 10 will give me 4. We'll add these together to get -5, multiply to get 2/5 times -5, we get -2, and then we get our remainder of 0. So we started off with a cube and we reduced that by 1. So that means that this will represent 5x squared minus 10x minus 5. I'm sorry, that's a plus 10x. Okay, so I think maybe I want to go into a little bit more detail about this division that we've done, and we'll come back to finding the rest of the zeros in just a moment, the rest of the solutions in just a moment. So some people may not have seen synthetic division before, and you might be more comfortable with long division. So when you're doing long division, it's going to look a little bit different. Okay, so we identified this 2/5 here as our solution, as our 0. So if we have a 0 of 2/5, that means that we have a factor of x minus 2/5. And so I'm going to divide using long division, and I'm going to show you how they're very similar to each other. So when you're doing long division, you're going to divide by x minus 2/5 into 5x cubed plus 8x minus 9. Oops, this is a squared, minus 9x plus 2. So when you use long division instead of synthetic division, this is what it looks like. And you're going to start off trying to match this x with this 5x cubed. So you're going to multiply by 5x squared. So you multiply that 5x squared times the x, and you get 5x cubed. And you multiply that 5x squared by -2/5, and that's going to give you a -2x squared. But then when we do long division, we always have to change our signs before we combine these together. So we're going to do the opposite here. We're going to make this minus and this plus. So 5x cubed minus 5x cubed, those guys cancel each other out. 8x squared plus 2x squared gives me 10x squared. And then we bring down our next terms. So we bring down the minus 9x and the plus 2. Now we repeat that process over again. So now we're trying to match that x with 10x squared. So we think, what can I multiply by x to get 10x squared? And that's going to be a 10x. And we multiply that 10x times the x, and that's 10x squared. And we multiply that 10x by the negative 2/5, and that's going to give me a negative 4x. Then we have to change our signs. So this becomes minus and plus. So now we have a negative 5x, and we bring down the next term. We get the 10x squared and the negative 10x squared canceling each other out, so that's why that part's gone. Now we repeat that process over again, and now we're trying to match this part right here. X times what will give us negative 5x? That's going to be a negative 5. Negative 5 times x is a negative 5x. Negative 5 times negative 2/5 is a positive 2, and then we have to change our signs. So that's where we get our remainder of 0. So hopefully you can see that we got the same answer doing it with long division and doing it with synthetic division. But I'm going to kind of compare these two for you so you can kind of see why it works. So hopefully you noticed that what we got on the top here is exactly what I have written down here. If we only focus on the coefficients, you can see that that's where those answers come from. And the numbers that you get in this row right here, you can see them here, here, and here. So the synthetic division, what it does is it just kind of takes away all of those variables and only focuses on the coefficients. So just to go back to the synthetic division for a second, the process is that these coefficients come from here. The first one you always just carry down. Then you multiply these two numbers to create that one. Then you add these two numbers together to get this one. You multiply these two numbers to get that one. You add these two numbers to get this one. You multiply to get this one, and you add these two to get this one. And once you've done that process, the numbers that you get at the end, these are the coefficients that go on your polynomial. Okay, so now that we have emphasized the synthetic division and the long division, we're going to come back and see where we are with our problem. So we have this 5x cubed plus 8x squared minus 9x plus 2 equals 0. And using that rational zeros theorem, we were able to identify one rational zero, and then we did some synthetic division, and we were able to reduce that down. So now I'm able to rewrite this polynomial as x minus 2/5 times 5x squared plus 10x minus 5 equals 0. And I know that I can solve every quadratic equation. If I can't solve it by factoring, I can always go to the quadratic formula. So I know I'm going to be able to find any other zeros that I have. So using this 5x squared plus 10x minus 5, I can start by factoring out a 5. I'll factor out a 5, and I'll be left with x squared plus 2x minus 1 equals 0. I don't think I'm going to be able to factor that anymore, so I'll use the quadratic formula with a equal 1, b equal 2, and c equal negative 1. And the quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I have negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 1 all over 2 times 1. We'll simplify to get negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 4, and this is plus 4 over 2. That's negative 2 plus or minus square root of 8 over 2. The square root of 8 can be simplified to be 2 square root of 2, and 2 goes into both of those to make it negative 1 plus or minus square root of 2. So now I've identified all of the zeros. Remember we said that there would be 3. So we have 2/5 being one of them, negative 1 plus square root of 2 being the second one, and negative 1 minus square root of 2 being the third. So these are the zeros or the solutions of our polynomial equation, 5x cubed plus 8x squared minus 9x plus 2. Thank you for checking out my videos. Have a great day.